All right, sit back, relax. It's time for another Laneway Talks.
Good morning, Rob. Welcome to Laneway Talks. How have you been?
Oh, I've been good. Thanks, Vince. Thanks for having me. Good morning to you too.
I would like to start off today. Look, there's a lot happening all round, but I'm going to concentrate on my discussion in Laneway Talks today about Laneway Red. And we've kind of launched. It's what we call a soft launch. We went out with beta first. We're still in beta, but we actually went out on our Facebook page and did a couple of posts, and we're doing more posts now, and we're going to start doing a post, I think, every day. So a bit about what's happening and what we're noticing. So we still have a lot of issues which we're having to resolve. So we're getting people sending through this doesn't work or that doesn't work, and we are fixing those accordingly. But what I think that people aren't realising is, not understanding what Laneway Red is. And Laneway Red, as I say in some posts, is think Spotify, think Apple. That's Laneway Red. At the moment, it represents Laneway music artists until other artists start joining. Now, there are no upfront fees. So there's there's 3 tiers of Laneway Red, Rob. You can, actually 4 in a way. If you just log on to lanewayred.com, you can look at all the tracks and you can play them. You can only continuously play 3 tracks, then it will stop and you'll have to pick another track. So it kind of forces you, and we do this on purpose, to become a member. But you can then even purchase downloads as a non-member. So you could be listening to a track, go, I like that, I want to download it. I know downloads aren't big anymore, but we still sell quite a lot of downloads internationally. But it is a diminishing product, but it's there. Then if you want to become a member, there are, again, no charges. The reason we want you to be a member is because we can measure your metrics then, and the artists can then engage with you. And that's what a big part of this is all about. It is about the artist engaging with their fans. They can't engage with their fans if they're non-members, because you don't have their email address and, you can't contact them, you can't send them notices and all that kind of stuff. And that's super important for, I'll refer to you as an artist, Rob, that you can engage with those fans. So becoming a member costs the punter nothing. They just have to put their email address in and a few details, and then they can stream as much as they want continuously. Don't have to pick another song after 3 songs and whatever. And of course they can purchase, but you can purchase as a non-member. But you can create playlists. You can share your tracks, which you can't do as a non-member. So you can share your tracks. You can comment. There's a whole host of other fields that you can use in there as a member. So what, again, that gets back to is the ability for you as a listener to engage with the artist. And so we definitely need information, and we measure that information for the artist so they can decide who are super fans, who are not, and whatever, and respond to comments and the like. Now, after that, you can also, as an artist, you can join as an artist. As an artist, it is what it is. You join, you put your music up, you can put it up for sale and whatever. And at the moment, it's pretty vanilla in that you put your songs up, you can sell them as downloads, and you can stream them. There will be, and you also get Artist Connect in there, which is where you can sell your musical equipment, I suppose, or you can connect with other artists. And then the next level is a label, like Laneway Music, for example. We have all our artists up there because Laneway Red is a separate entity from Laneway Music. So we put our artists all on there, and there could be people out there, punters who, have got 3 or 4 bands. They're starting there, especially a lot of young guys or girls who are male, female or non-gender who have got their little label going. And so they can join there and they can put them on there too. And there's nothing, so when you listen to all that, Rob, there's nothing new about it, is there? I mean, you just kind of go, yeah, well, I've seen it all before, Vince. Everybody else is doing it. And that is correct. But what we're trying to achieve with all of this is that we're trying to get a level of transparency into it all, which doesn't exist. And we've spoken about this on the other social media platforms and on the music platforms. It doesn't exist. And so let's think about that. We've spoken enough about Spotify and what may or may not be happening on there. We've tested their marquee and campaign paid marketing techniques that they've got on there, and they're very poor results. They're results, but they're poor results. You just have to spend a lot of money. It's like, I suppose I put it up into, they are valuing their responses as high quality, so therefore they're going to charge you on that basis. Now, that's not the case on Facebook and YouTube, where they may think they're high quality, but they're not. You're hitting millions of people and you're hoping for a 1 or 2 or 3% response rate if you're lucky. And so we've got, Spotify doing what they're doing. Apple, you can't even market on Apple, so that's that. Apple is a spent force, quite frankly. I don't think they're even interested in Apple Play, or iTunes will be gone shortly. And
it's Apple Music.
Yeah, it's Apple Music, correctly. Apple Play, though, that's their streaming service. But, iTunes as such is gone. It's still there. You still got iTunes because it's the iTunes player and it updates, but it's a gone, spent force. And then you've got Facebook and YouTube, and we have spoken about those before. And again, it's throw as much mud as you can at the wall and hopefully some sticks. Now, it does stick sometimes. I'll give you a pure example on where it's worked really well for us in a roundabout way is Johnny Batchelor from the Drop Bears. Now, Drop Bears are an 80s band. They're 80s, I suppose, alternative pop rock. And Johnny has put out a 4-track EP, and we made sure we were targeting all socials right at the same time. So you got your campaign going, and he did make some great videos. And that counts also. These are good videos. They're quirky videos. So you've got YouTube campaign going as you've got your Facebook campaign going. And one of the differences here too, Rob, has been that since you've been able to put up your videos on Facebook in their entirety, so a whole video, not 60 seconds or whatever, you can then campaign the whole video on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Really important. And then obviously hit up your other socials, TikTok, YouTube community, Threads, Insta, even LinkedIn, the woke society of Australia, of the world, and LinkedIn. And I do get all your LinkedIn posts too, by the way, and hit those all simultaneously. And we got some fantastic results. So his first track, I think, might have got 10,000. I think it might have been probably 5,000 streams on Spotify.
Okay.
And that is, some people might go, oh, it's nothing. Well, it is kind of nothing, but try and get over 1,000 streams on Spotify, and that tells the story. Now, if you start to get 2, 3, 4,000 on a release, and you're kind of an unknown artist in a sense, because he's kind of unknown back from the 80s, and you start to get those kind of figures, you're definitely connecting. There's something happening. It's up to you as the artist or the label to then expand on that connection. I hope that makes sense. So there is something happening there when you start to get 2,000 or 3,000 streams in the first week or two on Spotify. So we our call to action there was to then pump up those campaigns again. We then get back to the 4 to 6 week release schedule, as we've always spoken about. Go on.
Just the term call to action is that, how I understand that, is it's actually getting the listener or the audience member to do something to connect to your clip, your song. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'll give you an example. So you put up a play card, smart card, and your call to action is click on that and go to Spotify and listen to it. That's a call to action. All
right. A smart card being?
Smart card being a picture of you, the artist, say Virgin Soldiers, and it says new track, Power Hungry, click here to listen.
Okay.
So off we go with all of that. Now, we get back to that 4 to 6 week release schedule, probably more like 6 weeks. 4 weeks is too early. So let's call it 6 week release schedule. So by the time we're getting to that 6 weeks, we're kind of petering out, unless it was a number one hit, we're kind of petering out on what's happening on that last single. We then get to the next one and off we go again, and away we went, and we, got 3,000-4,000. Then we got to the third one, and I think across the threes up to nearly 20,000 streams. And what's happened with all of that is, of course, there's all the YouTube, we've done the campaigns there, so you might have a couple of 100,000 listens there or views, and the same on Facebook. Now, so there you go. There's a complete example. Now, you have to then, the problem with it all is you have to then keep that momentum up. So the momentum, once we get to the last track, which will come out in about 4 weeks' time, I think, is Watching the Detectives by Elvis Costello. He did one cover song. And once we get to that, he needs to really be thinking about his next release. And what happens with a lot of artists, I'm not saying this for Johnny because I'm hoping he's got it all organised, but a lot of artists then go, we're working on new tracks. Well, you've just lost all your momentum. And that's momentum, because once you start to get to 20,000 streams, and the metrics to look at too, Rob, are not just the 20,000 streams, because they could be bots. You look at how many listeners. So in that example there, I looked at that last night and there was nearly 10,000 listeners. So
that's good.
That's fantastic. It's spread, isn't it? You like it. They've played it maybe twice each. So it's a good spread. It's a good base to try and build from really well. So we then get to Laneway Red. And so if I go to those, they're my marketing techniques that I've got available to me. Whether they work, it's a real hit and miss, but we're hoping that with Laneway Red, because it's transparent, that if you got something like that on there, you could go back to those direct listeners. I can't do that on any of those other platforms. I can't, because I don't know. They tell me they will, but do they?
You don't know who those listeners are, do you?
No, you don't. So here you do. We don't give them the email addresses, but we are real in saying that, because that's privacy, we are real in saying you can go back to all the people that have listened to your tracks in the last 6 months. Here you go. You can send them, blast them with an email. You can blast them with a comment back on Laneway Red and whatnot. So that is just so important, because you're getting back to that core audience. And we've spoken about that on so many occasions, Rob, getting to our core audience and how do we know we're getting to them. And so Laneway Red is very focused on that. At the moment, the only real revenue source in there is downloads, because streaming, we've got to build some mass so then we can get advertisers on there and go from there. And we hope we'll do that over the next 6 to 12 months. It's a 12-month we've got a 12-month KPI on ourselves to hit some certain targets. Of course, APRA are behind us, so anybody in Australia can even put up cover songs, because it will be covered and for publishing and whatever. So we're covered on that basis also. But I'll then even drag it back again to the start and say, what do we feel the biggest issue is at the moment? The biggest issue is people online are not quite, they're either hesitant because, is this real or not? Or they don't understand, or what the hell. I got something the other day to go to some kind of meeting on some new platform, social media platform. I couldn't understand what they were talking about. So our job is to educate our viewers, listeners, social media friends, what Laneway Red is. And we've got to keep pumping up the word think Spotify, think Apple. Of course, there's videos on our site too. So you just don't have an audio. You can have a video also up on there. So that is Laneway Red at the moment. We're focused on that so heavily, and we have adjustments to make to it every day. Only yesterday I was having some problems with the social media shares. So if I go onto a track and I want to share that track on Facebook, I should be able to just click on the share button and it should then send it to your Facebook, as long as you linked your Facebook account. We had a few issues there, but we were nutting that out, and I think we've nutted that out. But there's a couple of different techniques in there. I won't go into the detail on that yet. And the other thing that we're doing is we're constantly trying to catch up. We are a couple of thousand tracks short of our catalogue, so up around that 10 We're even more, we're 5,000 short. We're up around the 10,000 tracks. We've got about 15,000 within our catalogue, and we're continually every day putting up new albums, and we're trying to hit the new releases at the moment and put those up there too. So we are really busy at the moment, Rob. So hopefully that explains a bit about it. I don't think it explains a lot, but I will bring this up time and time again. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what's happening on your end?
Just sort of scrolling through it and having a look and just looking at, because I suppose people have to go out to lanewayred.com to find it and then click on their artist. So,
Or they could do a search on the front page for their artist.
Yeah. And then just sort of click on from there. But
you know, it's discovery too. Go through there and go on a genre and have a look at a genre and discover what artists are there.
Yeah. I'm sort of having a look, but not a lot of plays there, so because it's so new, people get access in.
Well, in actual fact, I think there's an issue with the amount of plays that it's showing, because I was looking at, as from a label perspective yesterday, at a plays, and it showed me that we'd on the 16th, for example, where I use it as a background media player now, all day, every day, and it had showed me that we'd had one stream. So there's another issue there that we're getting the programmers to look at, that we don't think the count is working. So what you're seeing there. But I don't suspect there's a lot, but I'm playing it all day, every day, and have been for, a good week as a background media player. And I'm not seeing that on the stats for the label, let's call it, because we are a label on there like anybody else. And so when you see those numbers, I'm not sure they're working correctly. And these are all the things we're working on at the moment. Okay. All right?
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, it's great. It's out there and it's working, and it's an alternative platform, so,
I think we've got to keep pushing. This is a 12-month exercise. If you think Spotify took 2 years to even get any form of recognition back in its day when it started.
Yeah.
2 years. And I think you've got to, unfortunately you think, well, Spotify, Apple, and you think, oh, they're huge. Well, they did take time to get established. And
well, you go back to Napster, don't you, which is the file sharing thing, which is the beginning of however you want to look at it.
I agree with you.
The online and the file sharing.
Absolutely, it was, But, we're so... As I say, we're so confident, we just need to educate our people. Now, another thing too that I only just started I've just started to promote our podcast. And we had enormous issues, Rob, getting it across to YouTube, where we go from the RSS feed had been discontinued, so it wasn't going to our YouTube. So you can get it on Spotify and, Deezer and all these other, and Apple. But I'm not sure how big they are with podcasts. They might be with their real big ones, but the smaller ones like us, it's a you need a discovery tool. And how do you promote that? So we needed to get it across to YouTube. They just formed a new interface, and which we just got onto in the last week, and we started bringing across all the podcasts to YouTube. I've been blown away by the just putting up there within 48 hours, each episode getting 5 or 10 views. We are now campaigning one which has had 4,500 views. Now, I don't get excited about that yet because there's no comments. There is 24 likes on that, so I need to see 240 likes, and I need to see some comments. Yeah, because that tells you people are interacting, correct?
It does, yeah.
And so,
pretty positive or negative, but you need comments and you need interaction, and that's how you develop the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So start. I'm going to now continue on with this. Let's see where we go to. But I was pleasantly surprised, that they'd just been up for a day or two and they're all getting streamed.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Over to you, mate.
Okay, well, as you know, I've been spent the past... Actually, I was looking at how long this gig that I did on the weekend has planned, how long it took from the moment of inception.
Yeah.
Because my students, I try and encourage them, you're learning an instrument for the reason of playing in a band. In my mind, that's how that works.
Well, hold on. Let's start off with, for the audience, is that we spoke about this last week. You were putting a gig together for some of your students, and you were playing at the gig with your band also. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
Okay.
It was.
Right, okay.
And it was a platform, I mean, not a hidden agenda, but, we've written quite a few songs. We wanted to play 5 of those original songs to the audience and see what reaction we got, and the reaction was good, and the blend was good between the covers that we played and the original material we played. There was no staggering difference between the two, so I think we're in the right lane with that. So you need the feedback from the crowd, and the response was positive.
Tell me, Rob, how do you go with your band then playing at those, and because you're trying to educate your young musicians too about every facet of that gig.
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you go, and I talk to artists about this all the time, in between each song, and my comment always will be to bands, do not leave any silence in between. You must be conversing with the audience at all time, whether it be singing a song or talking to them while you're getting ready for the next song. And how long do you take between each song?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that comes down to experience, and it also comes down to how much experience the band's had at continuing the momentum, and it's also up to the front man, whether it be lead singer, guitar player, whatever, or drummers in some cases, to be able to quickly make decisions on whether there's a gap there. Because the guys that I play with, Michael Hill, who's coming up to be a new Laneway artist, Dennis Sermon and David Rhodes and myself, I mean, we've been doing it for 40 years, and the banter and the confidence and the crowd interaction that those guys have and had on Saturday night with the crowd, with telling jokes and just interacting with them and educating them on what the songs are about and what we've been doing and what we were doing to help the younger students out with their bands and give them an opportunity to be able to play in a real environment, not in a school concert hall, and it wasn't a school gig, it was a pub gig. And the youngest player that we had, I think, was 10 years old.
Wow.
The guitar player in the first band, and the drummer was 11, and the singer was 11. I mean, their parents are there with them, but they get to experience firsthand what it's like, and they get to see us do what we do and we've been doing for a lot of years. So coming back to the answer of your question, I think that comes down to knowing how to pick the audience after you've had experience with that, and that takes a lot of gigs to do that.
Absolutely. So, can I ask you a question in there?
Sure.
So you're talking there about some of them being, 10, 11, 12 and whatever.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Why would you pick such young musicians? In a sense, it's a commercial gig, really, and why you wouldn't have stuck to the more mature, which I would say would be 13 to 17. And there's a huge difference, I think, between a 10-year-old and, say, a 13 to 17-year-old. And where, if you think Silverchair, right, and think about their first song, they were 16 and 17 with that first song. I'm not suggesting it wasn't done by professionals in the background. The whole thing was there was a lot of money behind it or whatever. I can't quite remember whether it was, but anyway, if it was, it was. So why would you not, to give the audience and to give the musicians in that bracket that, and why put some on that are, say, 10 to 13 or 14? I just like to know.
It wasn't a conscious decision. I mean, as I said, I've got students that I teach every week, and that particular student is 11. His dad I play with, it was Michael Hill.
Yeah.
Griffin, I've had him for a couple of years, and he's come along to a point and he's got a band together, because I tell all my kids to go out and jam with your mates, find a guitar player at school, just do it. It doesn't matter whether it's good, bad or indifferent, because you have to go through the process of it,
Yeah.
And the improvement I've seen just in that student has been phenomenal. When I was watching them on Saturday night, I was really, really proud of how they conducted themselves and how well they play those songs.
Can I ask you, Rob, is there a difference between your students who never play with a band? So let's say they're excellent students. You go, my God, this guy, girl, or whatever, it just unbelievable. And then you've got another student who's good, but he's doing exactly what you're saying. Get in there and jam with friends and get that experience going. And is there a stark difference between those two types of musicians?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a growing process for any human being having a social interaction. I mean, music just enhances that experience and gives them more options to make their own decisions and learn from that.
What about with things like timing? So see, because I think drumming, okay, and if
Yep.
you're an exceptional drummer and your timing is unbelievable, but when they're with a band, their timing is just sloppy. They have to have a click track. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't view it from that point. With all my students, it's imperative as drummers we have a responsibility to have good time, and I instill that from day one. You need a metronome. You need to be able to balance your time, because what our job is primarily in a band is we have to hold all that together. But there's another aspect to that where playing a guitar or singing or playing a keyboard is a completely different physical action to playing a drum kit. So you have to be able to relate to how the other players in the band perceive time, because it's different. And you have to build communication skills, because it's a very, very sensitive subject between a guitar player or a drummer or a bass player or a singer or a keyboard player or a horn player. Everyone has their own perception of it, and they all have an understanding, but you've got to be very, very politically savvy to try and communicate that between them. And that's part of the growing process and learning process of being a musician. You have to have good time, and your responsibility is to be able to stay in that time, but also understand what time is. It's at quarter note time, it's eighth note time, it's 16th note time. They're all the even ones. Then you've got the triplet ones. You've got your eighth note triplets, 16th note triplets, and they're different styles of music have those characteristics. So you've got to be strong within that, and I try and teach all my students to have that basic understanding when they go to the band and the guitar player speeds up or the drummer, they don't come in at the same time, who's responsible for the count. They're all really important aspects of trying to play music live.
Can I ask you something that had occurred when I started? I'm a learnt drummer, okay. So yeah, when I started out, I sight read and whatever, and of course, all that was instilled into me is you've got to have the metronome going. And every time I went into my lessons, first thing you do is put that metronome on and you do your rudiments for me and whatever. And then later on in life, as I, moved away from that and started playing around and whatever, I remember being in the studio many years ago, and the engineer, and it was a guitarist, and he goes, he's all over the joint. And he goes, you're spot on though, Vince, you're playing spot on. And he goes, you obviously, how did you practice? Did you used to use metronome, whatever? I said, no, I just, later on, I always just would play to albums, it was vital in those days. And albums, he goes, well, there you go, just as good as a metronome, he said, because obviously they either used a click track or, metronome in there or whatever. He said,
most of those drummers had good time.
Yeah. So he goes, that's why your timing's spot on. He goes, you haven't just been playing to yourself. And forget the metronome, just playing to yourself generally. So, a lot of guitarists do that too. They just sit there, and he goes, is there any truth in that?
Absolutely. I never had a metronome up until, I think, 1985 when I went back to lessons with Frank Corniola. I played for my whole life in bands, or whether it was with my dad, whether it was at calisthenics for, accompaniment, whether it was in school bands, whether it was in rock bands, from whether it was in marching bands, and I never had a metronome.
Right. Okay.
And that was from 68 through to 85, so there's a lot of years there. But when I listen to the touring and the tapes and all of that, I kind of cringe a little bit, because the energy in the crowd, and it would start at one tempo, and that it'd speed up and then it'd slow down or whatever. So I had to come back and really be disciplined to play with that click. And then I really started thinking about why I perceive that, because music's an organic thing. I mean, with the Soldiers, for instance, or even before that with the Modes, bands that I spent a lot of time recording with and working with, we never recorded with a click. I was practicing with it, and more so in the Soldiers. But playing with those guys, they had good time, and they had a good perception and understanding of note, groupings that we all sort of played off each other with. So there's a learning process in that. But then when I listen back to it and then I'd transcribe it, or what I'm doing now, and then I'll transcribe the whole thing into Sibelius music software scoring program. And I've done that. That's all in my book. But Danger in the Night, Never Too Late, or Make a Change, I've transcribed them. I actually listen to those Sibelius files play my song, and it's very stiff and very stilted. It's got no organic property to it or whatsoever. And I can program dynamics into those things, and I can program time shifts into it as well. But
anyway, I pulled you away from our basic discussion of your gig. Sorry to do that.
That's all right. Yeah. I think it's a valid point.
But let's go back to your gig, and let's go there. And
so when I spoke to you, we were talking about the takeaways from the experience, I suppose, is the best way to bring it all back. The thing that I noticed was the basic gig procedures are also an important lesson for all students. That's another reason I put it on, because they're the things that aren't covered in formalised music lessons. And I did notice when the kids were coming up on stage, because we used my Marshall 100-watt vintage modern amp and a quad box with the kids, which is the first time they played through something that powerful and that big. And the first question I asked them is, one, is your guitar in tune? And I tuned it a while ago. Okay.
Sorry. I can only remember a gig with James Rain and another band, the Slow Club. And that night it was cold and the guitars were going out of tune within 5 minutes. Anyway, continue.
I know. I mean, I say to the guys, they say, I'm out of tune. I say, it's funny, I tuned it yesterday. It's an ongoing joke. But kids have to realise that they need a device, and you can get little clamps to go on the top of your guitar headstock, and it'll tell you whether you're in tune or not. That's an important thing. Getting your sound together was another thing. I asked, did they have their lead? No, didn't bring that either. Okay. Do you have any pedals? No, I don't own any pedals. Okay, but I want to get some. Okay, that's good too, because they're important parts. I mean, when you look at a guitarist like Edward Van Halen, he never used a guitar pedal. It was all amplifier sound and his guitar, and that's a very important lesson too, because some gigs you go to, the guitar player's got 25 pedals and 3 amps and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And, that's fine too. That's your choice, and that's what you want to do, and that's the sound that you require. The songs sounding like they're meant to be sounding, that's fine. But coming back to the students, as soon as they plugged in and they play a chord, they go, oh, okay, wow, more distortion, less distortion, and I can hit a switch. And I had a stage tech there, so I had pros working with the kids, and that's great because they went, I'll look after your sound. We've got front of house sound working. We've got wedges so the vocalist can hear. And the kids will go, wow, this is amazing, which is great. The other thing I noticed with the singers was pick the correct key for your voice, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's another technical thing that I did notice, that all the singers were struggling with the keys that the songs are in. Now, whether they have lessons, I don't know. I think some of them kind of do, maybe at school. But a very important thing for singers to work out there is, what key do you sing in? Practice those scales. And then if you're going to play a song, make sure you can transpose it into the key that you can sing in.
Well, that video you sent me this morning, what's his name again?
Rick Beato. Yeah.
Did you see his son? Did you see that? And
absolutely.
I was blown away. I was on my morning walk run, and I had to stop and listen when he said, give me an F. And the kid gives him an F. And the kid was like 10 years old.
That's right. That's
I just went,
pitch.
wow. I couldn't believe it. So
but that's the age you have to do that at.
Right.
I remember having trumpet lessons at school, at high school in first year, because there was no drum facility at the school that I went to. They had a drum kit, but that was about it. And I played trumpet, and I was with a trumpet teacher, and he said, like B flat is what the trumpet's in. He says, play C, play F, blah, 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 blah. And then he'd hum a note, and I would match it. He goes, you've got a perfect ear, so I'm going to put you on French horn.
Right.
So you can pick the pitch. I mean, that was a natural thing to me, because I spent a lot of time playing on the piano out in the front room.
But Rob, I pick this up all the time on musicians now. I'm not backwards and coming forwards. I I said, you need to put a pitch corrector on that. Send me a new song, and I go, it needs to be fixed. And they go, what's wrong? I go, you need a pitch corrector on the vocal. There's one thing to sing out of pitch on an alternative indie type of song where it suits the song, very unique kind of thing to do, and to just simply be out of pitch and go, that is out of pitch. You need to pitch correct it, or you need to re-sing it again. And I pick it up time and time again. I've had no issue with picking that up. And so a really relevant point on what you're saying, that it needs to be educated into them from a very early age.
It does. That stagecraft is very, very important, and that's part of learning your stagecraft, is be able to, before you even get up on stage to do it, you have to be able to sing a song in tune at the key that your voice is in sync with, If you can't, it makes it very difficult for the audience to listen to it.
Well, Rob, I got, at a very early age, got asked to sing. So, as a drummer, I'll give it a crack. I knew straight away I couldn't sing. And there's just no way. But one thing I've been able to do, so there's one thing to sing, but I always have no problem doing backup vocals and picking up the correct pitch when doing backup vocals. I'm very good at that, but I can't sing. I don't know, do you ever find that?
Are you doubling the vocalist line?
Yeah. Well, either doubling the vocal or picking up on a keyboard or a guitar tone to harmonise behind it. I can do that, but I can't sing.
You know what? So you don't know, or do you know what harmony you sing with? You sing the third or the fifth? Or?
No, I don't. So, but I can always pick it and come in behind it and give it some oomph and whatever, but I cannot sing.
Yeah.
All right?
Okay.
I wonder whether that's something for young kids too, in that you've got to just determine, therefore, can you sing, or are you a backup singer, or what are you,
Yeah, the thing is recording yourself and listening back and just doing basic scales and seeing how far off you are, but, also having a competent teacher that can run you through those things as well.
So the bands in general, so your bands, therefore, what was your take on the quality of music from these young musicians?
Hearing them through great sound reinforcement, because it was, a great gig with pros running it.
Yeah.
The parents said, I've never heard them sound this good before.
Oh,
and you could
fantastic.
They could all hear themselves. They had monitors.
Yeah.
They had, fallback wedges, and they had amplifiers that were loud enough, and their blend was good. So I thought that was great, and that's good training for them as well. And the songs that they all chose, and I haven't had a big part in this, but I do sort of champion the 70s, but they were all from the 70s.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. I mean,
and there was
absolutely.
And a couple of the people in the crowd came up and go, "How come these kids are playing all these songs from the 70s? That's great." And I had that response from more than one punter, and I've gone, well, it's the best era of music, in my opinion. My students and their bands think the same thing.
So was there some standouts there that you kind of went, wow, this could be a kind of a Hindley Street type band? You could have young artists doing the similar kind of thing. Was there some real standouts, or have you got quite a few more gigs to do to get them into what they need to know and how they need to present themselves musically and whatnot?
I think it's their journey. I can guide them, but I'm not going to sit there and critique to a point where you need to be this type of thing. I really like to promote the original self-expression and whatever you're doing, and if it feels good and it sounds good to you, then it is good.
Absolutely.
It's not a competition, because someone said, let's do a battle of the bands.
Please, no.
People get it, in my humble opinion, educated or not. Music to me is not a competition. Everyone is different and everyone has their own journey with it. And I think we all can just do our own thing. And fair enough, we're influenced and we know what we like and we know what we like to reproduce. But, please follow your own heart, your own path when you do that. And that's what I'm trying to encourage my kids.
I think I did a battle of the bands, when I was young, and the reason we did it was because it was an opportunity to play live. There was no intent on winning or doing anything. It was just an opportunity to get on stage and play.
Yeah, and most of the time it is, but the competition thing, and I've done the competition thing. I've done it, whether it be in pipe bands or marching bands, or and the Modes won the Battle of the Bands here in 82.
I remember you told me that.
So, they're good opportunities, but sometimes it can be taken a little bit too far down that path. So,
well, but I think what you brought there, so you've just talked about, how you've given them some education in whether it be the sound mix, the fold back, are you in tune, is your guitar tuned, or what effects racks you got and what amps you're using and all that. But on top of that, do you see that there was some form of education too in putting a gig together?
Yes.
You can't get a gig, but you could put a gig on yourself, and we've spoken about this in the past, you and me, where, you could actually get this together yourself. Do you see yourself putting on one of these a month or something, or one every 2 months or something like that, Rob, to try and educate them that it's all there for you, but you got to make it happen?
Yeah, I've been doing this every year for the past, since 2005.
Yeah.
Since I started Rob's Drum Shed. I put on a concert every year, and all the kids get up and play, whether it be with my band, with a backing track, or in a drum corps, ensemble type thing. And I do it every year.
Yeah.
So to give the kids an opportunity to experience what that's like. In front of it, I call it a safe audience because it's, it's parents, it's friends, and, the venue, I'm sort of particular about the venue that we use. And fortunately, we had the opportunity to use the Navy Club over here at Port Adelaide. And they're wonderful people there that run it. They're fully supportive. I had a lot of support to do what I did on Saturday night, and I'm very grateful to everybody that helped me with that. But the kids learn from that as far as selling tickets, encouraging friends to come along. Because all those kids that played in those bands all had their friends there with them, and their parents and their aunts and uncles and things like that. And that's the community. And I said this on the night, that it's really important that this musical community at this level we nurture and keep growing, because that's where the future is.
I think what you just said before, in a safe environment. Now, I don't mean a safe physical or mental environment. It's a safe music environment where they feel safe to get there, to get their friends there, to get on stage, the whole thing. They've got support from someone like you or your band.
Absolutely.
You've got a music tech there with them, a stage tech, and that's a safe environment. And to me, it's like a wow factor. What an opportunity these kids have had to play in that environment, where they feel safe. They can get there and, well, it's really not going to go wrong. My playing might go wrong, but nothing else is really going to go wrong.
Yeah, they're looked after.
Congratulations to you, Rob. Congratulations to you to do it.
Thanks, Vince. Yeah, it's good. And I'm blessed to be able to have the support from all of those people to be able to do it, because, as I said, it's definitely the future, and it's definitely important that we nurture the musical community in our own backyard.
Maybe in the future what we can do is help you run one of those gigs. I don't know how, in Melbourne's a different thing because we don't know Adelaide, but do something where we sponsor it or whatever and put some money into it so that it's all available, and you put on the gig again within that safe musical environment for these young artists to, to feel, they'll determine from there, won't they, Rob, whether they like music or not. That gives them the whole experience. You either liked it or you didn't.
Absolutely, yeah. And, there's a lot of pressure when you perform. There's a lot of anxiety around it. And a lot of the kids these days are feeling those pressures and those anxieties, and you have to learn to deal with them.
Rob, I'm one of those artists that I've never had an issue getting on stage, all right? It's not a problem. I can be doing anything 5 minutes before, and someone goes, "You're on in 5." And I just walk up and that's it. I have other artists who I've played with who are a complete nervous wreck and are drinking half a bottle of gin prior to the show.
Sure.
And so and that's where these young kids will learn at that young age, how nervous are they getting up there, or is it just it's natural to them?
Yeah, as I said, everyone's got their own journey. I pay for it in a lot of different ways, and I'm silly enough to load myself up with a million different tasks as well as perform.
Yeah.
But I'm used to that level. Yeah. And I enjoy the challenge, but I won't say it's fun a lot of the time because there's so many points.
Yeah.
From even, loading in, making sure you've got all the gear, setting up, sound checking, and doing that because I had to do it, with a kit, and I had to do it with guitar amp, and as well as run the show and coordinate, different people's tasks and
well, interestingly,
delegate.
saying what you're saying there is such a hard job, because I just said to the audience that I don't get nervous getting up on stage and playing at all, and I'm not nervous prior to it or anything. But my wife has told me on many occasions the whole week prior to me putting on a gig, I'm a nervous wreck. Not me playing, Rob, putting on a gig. I'm a nervous wreck, and I'm a nervous wreck on the night, because it's the professionalism of what you've just been talking about. Getting everything in there, getting it in on time, starting on time, what goes on between each songs, what about between bands? We don't need mucking around between bands. We need a smooth transition. The whole thing is the word professional.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And I mean, the kids need to learn that, you can't expect them to know that straight away, but with a gentle hand and guidance, I think they can begin to see those things and the light will go on. There's many light bulb moments that I saw lots of those students have on Saturday night, which is great, because they just take that into the future. That experience they'll take to the next gig. And some of them have got a gig this weekend, another gig this weekend, and I know another one of the band's got a gig a couple of weeks' time. So, those kids are out there gigging.
Yeah, so I see, I totally understand what you're saying, in that you were really pressed on the night because you're doing it all and you're playing. But, as I said earlier, I get super nervous. I get nervous too, because I want the audience to have a really good experience also, because that's so important to understand as a musician. You're only there because there's people in front of you wanting to listen to you.
That's correct.
And you need to make this a really good experience for that audience. And that's difficult too. And that means no mucking around. It's a real, you're entertainers, so you must entertain. We can't have a lot of mucking around between band setups. And all that kind of jazz. You need to make sure that the audio mix is good and they're not trying to refine it too much in the first or second song of each band. You can't have that, so that means you've got to have a good audio engineer. So I can understand the pressure put on you on the night would be enormous.
Yeah, but I mean, as I said, I spoke with Tom Westerholm, who was the engineer that I toured with, and, he was one of in my band, really, because I always consider the crew are in the band when you're touring and when you're working. I have 100% confidence in him. He's a pro, and nothing's too hard, and we've all worked our asses off to have that ability and that confidence.
Well, Rob, isn't it like when you get your crew, and there's a buzz in somewhere, so then, and I always find it amazing how they can get up on stage and within 5 minutes work out where the buzz is coming from and replace that lead. Yeah? Yeah,
that was Tony, our stage guy, the first guy, the 10-year-old guitar player that got up. And if you see, I don't know, my socials, I've got pictures up, and the parents gave us permission, because we asked the parents if we could have the permission to use photos of the kids. Yeah. And the venue did as well, because, you've got to be very aware of that. Yeah. But Tony got up on stage and he said he had a Strat with single coil pickups, and they tend to hum. And he's standing right next to my Marshall, and Tony said, just turn around, and the hum went away. And then when he came back on stage, which is important, but the stage guy knew what that was and eliminated it straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
Got back up on stage, plugged the guitar lead in, and it was buzzing. So bang, placed the lead. Yeah, it was still buzzing. So anyway, my guitar player, David Rhodes, got up, Tom, front of house guy, pulled out his toolkit, got a pair of pliers and fixed the input jack on his guitar, plugged it in, no hum. Those guys problem solved and fixed that within 2 minutes.
Wow. That's just wow factor, isn't it, eh?
Yeah, and this 10-year-old guitar player is just up there, and he's got this bunch of techs around him going bang, 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 bang. There you go. Work.
That's fantastic. I mean, credit to you for doing it, Rob, and giving these young kids the experience, and every bit of that knowledge base that they pick up, during these experiences is so invaluable if they are to go on to become professional musicians.
Absolutely, and if they don't, they had a great time.
Yeah.
And they'll remember that for the rest of their lives too. So,
so any of this got filmed so people can watch it online?
That, for me, I didn't even bother about that. Yep. I wanted people to enjoy the experience and not get hung up on
it's a whole nother job, Rob. It comes with a whole nother set of pressures.
Yeah, but I remember seeing Steve Smith doing a drum clinic here in Adelaide, and Terry Bozzio did the same thing. Like Steve Smith played for Journey, Terry Bozzio played for Zappa and Missing Persons, and both of them said, put your cameras away, turn them off, turn your phones off, and listen and enjoy the experience of being here and soak it up.
Yeah.
And I feel exactly the same way. If you're predisposed with your technology, you're missing the whole event.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, some parents filmed it. I think there's a couple of things up that come up on my timeline. But, yeah, that was one thing that I didn't concern myself with. I just wanted to experience it, everyone to experience it. And all of those kids did the same thing. They felt it and they were in the moment and they were doing it, and they were present. I think that's very important, especially these days.
There you go, Rob's Drum Shed in action again. I just think fantastic, and congratulations on such a good evening then.
Thanks. It's great to be able to do it.
All right. What else you got? Good. Anything else, or are we done for the day?
I think that's enough.
All right, mate, we just hit an hour, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Of course, when we do banter on like this, it gets away from us, and we know we don't like to go over an hour because that is the concentration span.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing, you brought it up before, was the call to action. People, please give us some feedback. Click on links, subscribe to our channels. There's Rob's Drum Shed, there's Laneway Music.
All your links are up there. We really do push Rob's links on there. Yep. So if you go to the podcast, you'll see that all the Rob's links there, because he's got quite a few. And so, reach out to Rob if there's anything there of interest too.
I'm trying to get my YouTube channel subscribers up. I put a call out and I said, I'd like to get to 1,000 subscribers. In the past 2 or 3 days, I've had another 6, so I'm up to 81. But I'd really, people, go to Rob's Drum Shed and just click on subscribe, like.
Yeah. You need 500. Everybody out there, he needs 500 subscribers to get that monetised.
Yep, that's what we need, and that's what we're trying to do to try and survive and keep the content coming and keep putting on events like we're doing. So
fantastic. Yeah. All right, Rob, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Vince. Appreciate it, mate.
See you, mate. Bye.
Well, there you have it, another Laneway Talks. If you enjoyed that, just search Laneway Talks for more great conversations.